There are some seats as well if you want to come in and sit down.
Jack can sit here, Mark there, and then Sarah, and then your friend behind you. Yes. Or here.
Yes.
Jeff, can you sit over there?
Yes.
Oh, I know.
You want to catch your scarf?
I know that. I know. Yeah.
There's a little rip in the bottle already.
So we're gonna begin in just a moment. If everyone can hear me. We'll begin this morning by pairing Kriya. This is a custom that comes from our sacred text. It comes from the Mishnah and the Talmud, which basically tells us that historically, 2,000 years ago, when people lost parents, they immediately tore their clothing as a sign of the internal terror that they felt. And so, Bella, we invite you today to begin with this practice of caring. And there's a blessing that we say as we do this, and it's really the blessing over, so don't tear quite yet. It's the blessing over truth, over the God of truth. And I think that the reason why we say this blessing today is because we think about all of the stories and the long life that your mother led and how she lived certain truths throughout her life. All of the many adjectives, which I'm going to share today that you spoke of that describe her, the truths that were her life. And so as you tear this, you connect with the pain of the loss of your mother, but also the truths that will actually remain in your heart. A torn heart, right? There's a tear, but the truths, they do remain. So I want to invite you to stand while we do this, and you can repeat after me the blessing. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, dayan ha'emet. Adonai natan v'Adonai lokach v'yishem.
Yila mahalot, esayne alehodri, mehayin yavo ezeri, meim Adonai, ose shamayim bo'aretz. Hare yitain lamot raglecha al yonam shomerecha. Hinei la yonam v'la yishawan shomer Yisrael. Adonai shomerecha, Adonai tzilecha aleyah yeminecha. Yom HaShemesh lo yakecha, ve'yoreach b'layla. Adonai yishmorecha mikol ra, yishmor et nafeshecha. Adonai yishmor tzeicha ובעליך מעתה ועד עולם. A song for ascents. I turn my eyes to the mountains. From where will my help come? My help comes from Adonai, maker of heaven and earth. Adonai will not let your foot give way. Your guardian will not slumber. Guardian of Israel neither slumbers nor sleeps. Adonai is your protection, a guardian at your hand. By day the sun will not strike you, nor the moon by night. God will guard you from all harm and guard your life, as Adonai guards your going and your coming, now and forever.
In the words of Ecclesiastes, a season is set for everything, a time for every experience under heaven. A time for dancing, a time for wailing, a time for birthing, a time for dying, a time for speaking, and a time for silence, a time for seeking, and a time for moving. Resilient, outgoing, sensitive, social, smart, creative, artistic, critical, visually astute and observant, biggest champion for her people, a person who loved unconditionally and thoroughly, territorial, competitive, feminist, liberal-minded, beautiful, strong, a connector. Today, we remember Selma Friedman and her 102 and a half years of vivacious, spirited life. Selma is remembered by many loving families. Her daughter and son-in-law, Stella and Jeff, Marla's husband, Carl, her stepchildren, Charles and Miles and Lainey, her grandchildren, Ben and Jen, and Mark and Sarah, and Alex and Rebecca, and Julia, Henry and Shayna, and her great-grandchildren, Annabelle and Emma and Meir. Today, we will share stories of Selma's life. We will share loving memories. We will together hold her memory and bring it to life as we engage together in this final act of love that we offer to Selma. We say that this is the biggest mitzvah that we can give to somebody, because Selma can never thank us for this. This we do wholeheartedly and selflessly as a way of elevating Selma and her soul, and as a way of enabling her spirit to continue to dwell within us and with us. We have a number of speakers today. So many folks who have loved Selma throughout her long 102 years. I want to invite Rabbi Sarah Gilbert to speak.
Thank you, Rabbi Coburn. All my sympathy to Selma's wonderful family. Those who are present here in Denver, Della and Jeff and Mark and Sarah, and those across the country, also precious grandchildren. I'm very appreciative that Della invited me to add my memories to honor a very special woman this morning. Thank you. There are only a very few members of my generation who now have parents with us. We were very envious of Della and the time she had with Selma. Of course, Della, you so generously provided so much support and caring for your mom. We all thank you as we celebrate Selma's spirit today, for you helped to make your mother's length of days rich and full. And I know that it was mutual. Selma provides a legacy for you and your and Marla's children. Selma's strength, resilience, extraordinary concern for community are characteristics and values that you do carry forward. And on a personal note, you might have heard the saying that you can take the girl out of Brooklyn, but you can't take Brooklyn out of the girl. Brooklyn girls live big with a New York assurance, a New York sense of propriety and dignity, a New York style, and a New York wisdom. That was Selma. And my mom was from Brooklyn too. So the two connected immediately, sharing their Brooklyn and Long Island stories. Each complemented the other's outfits and hair and outlook on life. They became respected friends. Selma's presence made my Mother's Day brighter, as Selma did for all of us. We speak of the Rodef Shalom family, and Selma Friedman became one of the matriarchs of our precious group. Selma actually truly was part of all of our extended families. As we talked with her, sat with her at Kiddush, visited Selma, we learned from her of her generosity of spirit, of the beauty in her caring, her friendships, her zest for life, and her love for her family. We all know of her great emotional strength as she experienced loss. We know of her determination to look ahead with hope and resolve. We all will continue to learn from you, Selma, for precious relationships do not end when one departs this world. They live on. Selma, may you be blessed as the journey of your soul now. May you be blessed as your memory will always be a blessing for us. Hamakamot Tov Shalom. May Selma go unto God in peace. Rabbi Bernard Gilson sends his regrets. He wishes that he could have been here with you, with all of us this morning. And I'm very honored that he asked me to bring his words. Thank you, Rabbi Colvin. Rabbi Gilson wrote, I will never forget how Selma waved me over to her pew amidst the Torah procession during her first visit to Rodef Shalom as a new member, to announce with great enthusiasm that she and Dick had arrived in Colorado, and hence the beginning of the Selma wave. As I grew closer to Selma over the years that have intervened, her love of Jewish culture and of Israel took center stage when we visited at Kiddush and in my study, and during that memorable Kol Nidre Eve when she addressed us as the speaker for the annual appeal. Her strong voice and embrace of newcomers always reminded me of the basic duties that we hold as Jews and as human beings. With all the above said, the most enduring messages of the Selma wave that washed over our community was her phenomenal ability to deal with adversity. The most pronounced challenge that I witnessed was the illness and demise of her beloved daughter, Marla. And I remember sitting with her in her home during the time of the funeral service that was taking place in the East. While her mood was solemn and quiet, she chose to speak about life and accomplishments. While it could be said of many who responded to calamity by donning rose-tinted glasses, Selma chose to don her spectacles of wisdom and perspective that would enable her to outlast her darkest days and to give us all hope to rise above our own moments of crisis. Indeed, the Salamnik poet foretold the life and legacy of our Selma when composing the closing verses of the Ashes Kyle. Strength and dignity are her clothing, and she laughs at the time to come. She opens her mouth with wisdom, and the law of kindness is on her tongue. Thank you, Rabbi Gilson.
Invite Della to come and share a few words as well.
Thank you, dear friends, dear friends. My community of support, you're always here for me. And also some of the wonderful caregivers that Mom here had. Mary, Jan, and Mary Gay representing Homestead. Everybody took such good care of Mom. And they always said she was easy to take care of. She always thanked people, and she was just so sweet with people. As you all know, I have two stepbrothers. My dad died, when Mom was in her early 50s, and then she remarried Abe Friedman, who she will be buried next to, and I have two stepbrothers. And one of them, my stepbrother Charles, he's working in Arizona and just could not get a plane here. I felt badly for him for that, but I asked him to write something and he wrote these words, and I think I'll share them with you. I think my mother and Charles had a special connection. She had a great deal of empathy for Charles. My mother lost her mother when my mother was 17. And that was always, she always felt a little bit like a motherless child, an orphan in that way. And Charles also lost his mother when he was a late teenager. That was Dick's first wife, Helen. So I'll read what Charles wrote. Oops. Selma was the most inclusive, assertive advocate to making everyone in her presence as family. She provided love, kindness, and confidence that you were special. She always looked to the positive traits and unyielding loyalty to those who were blessed by her presence and wisdom to make the world a better place. She was always proud of all our accomplishments and we of hers. She was an advocate to me and a loving mother who made my life better and fulfilling to me. She made everyone feel worthwhile and was a blessing to humanity. May her legacy as a proud Jew, a Dawson member, mother, wife, great-grandmother, grandmother, friend touch us to be better and kinder to each other. So I didn't write, I wrote some thoughts, since the news went out yesterday. I've been getting all kinds of emails and text messages and loving support from the community and so many people who knew Mom. She made a real impact on people's lives, and there was just a consistency to what people said. Everyone commented about just her beautiful presence, how important it was for Mother to respect herself. I was thinking what that meant. Mother respected people and she respected herself. And that was part of what made her want to always look right. That respect for herself and her body. Today when I was getting dressed, I wasn't going to wear earrings. And then I said, no, I remember Selma always liked her earrings. Those of you who particularly her caregivers, towards the end, she didn't have pierced ears, And I had to go out looking all the time for clip-ons because she'd always be losing one clip on another. But really, up until maybe I don't know, several months ago, she had to be dressed, and being dressed was wearing earrings and having her hair done every week and making sure that her nails were done right. And I think that is respect, for others, how she came across to others, but also respect for who she was and her body and her God-given body. Mother always had a great faith in Hashem. I think she never, we said all the trials that she went through, she never really felt alone. And of course, she always brought people around her. But despite in her youth feeling like an orphan and not having a place, she always made sure that she knew everybody and made a place for them. So she loved life, lived it well, loved to dance. Any of you remember Jan? They used to sometimes at Mountain View, whatever it's called now, would do happy hour and New York, right? She loved that, the New York, and would always want to dance. Mother loved to play Scrabble. She was the best Scrabble player, right, Sarah? She could beat everybody. And we did that even towards the end, well, a couple of years ago when she didn't see well and everything, but we still played a lot of Scrabble. She loved fashion, as you know, and someone today sent me a comment about the Hadassah fashion show we had several years ago when Mom was in the fashion show, and like she was, this person said, and she was the star. And I think that's how Mom always, she wanted to be the star. Some people don't like to have attention. She loved that. Because I think that was recognition that you're here, Selma. You love it. She loved the ballet. That's great. As we were leaving the house, Jeff put some music on and it was ballet music, and I remembered my mother taking me to the ballet. I'll always remember biggest champion. I always, and I will continue with you, always knowing that Mother loves you and loves me totally. And love, not love with the ability to go fly, go off, but always knowing that there was my mother love to return to it. And I'm a big girl now. I'm a grandmother love and a mother love, and I will share that with all of them. And there'll be things all the time like today, the music that I heard.
For those of you that don't know me, I'm Mark, Jeff and Bella's son, and Selma's grandson. It sort of seems like yesterday that we were here 9 years ago to bury Grandpa Dick. And these two people tried to really put into words how important they were in my life. And for those those that knew them can maybe understand that without me having to say the words. But Selma always was inspiring to me as a musician because she was so artistic and so talented in her artistic abilities. And she was always so supportive, as were my parents, but to have that multi-generational support behind what I was doing and the life that I am pursuing is really important. And as we say goodbye to this physical part of Selma, I know that she's going to live on very strongly within all of us for all the things that have been mentioned before and for all the inspiration that she provided. And she was truly an incredible, powerful woman, and the world was better off for it. And may her memory be a blessing. Love you.
Selma Friedman was born on February 1919 in Brooklyn, New York, just at the end of the first Great Pandemic. At a very young age, she learned the power and the strength of resilience, as has been mentioned multiple times. When she was 5, her parents got divorced, and that was pretty rare back then. Selma and her mother Della moved in with her grandparents, with her mother's parents. And then her mother died when she was 17, and she moved in with her aunt's family. So she was moving quite a bit as a child. Then when her grandmother died, she moved in with her dad and his new wife. As a child, there was so much transition and upheaval that Selma never felt like she quite fully belonged. She therefore knew the power and the feeling of being nurtured and wanted and connected, how powerful it is to know that you have a place. She understood what that power really meant. And this led her to connect with people throughout her life, people she met, creating a feeling of belonging, both for her and for those that she connected with. She always wanted others to feel that connection too. And sometimes that even happened through silly ways, like meeting somebody and playing a really good game of Jewish geography and figuring out how she knew and who the connections were, right? She was creating a web of community, a web of connections, a web of people holding each other and knowing that they were of value. Selma attended Girls Commercial High School, where she studied fashion design. She then spent some time learning at the Pratt Institute in New York, where she focused on fashion and illustration. This artistic talent stayed with her throughout her life. Any of you have been to her house, her apartment, you would have seen her paintings, her watercolors, and her beautiful oil paintings that were throughout her apartment and her bedroom. Incredible, incredible talent. And I'm told she also made fashionable paper dolls for her grandchildren when they were younger, using that same creativity to connect with those she loved. During the war, Selma worked in the fashion industry as a buyer for Federated stores. She was both independent and industrious, and she traveled for work, taking the train to Chicago and going to a place that I had not heard of, but I just learned of, Gloversville, which is in New York and is a place where they make gloves, which was her specialty. Selma met Bernard during the war. She was 25 and he was about 26, or she was 25, about 25 or 26. They met in one of the least expected places, a hospital room. He was a patient and she was a visitor. but she was not there as his visitor, at least at first. He had gone into the hospital for an appendectomy and had a joint room with another person. And that person happened to be Selma's cousin. And Selma came to pay him a visit. Once again, a connector, making that connection with her cousin. And as she was visiting, she made another connection. And that was with the handsome man in the bed next to him. Yes, Bernard was a handsome man. And even after having surgery and lying in a hospital bed, he still made an impression. And so a match was made. Bernard went off to the war in the Pacific, but not before proposing to Selma. In his absence, Selma quickly became part of the family, Bernard's family, that is. Bernard was the oldest of four, and she would go over to their house during the war for dinner. She would go over to hang out and spend time, and they became family immediately, embracing her. She quickly came to love and be loved by her mother-in-law, Pauline. When Bernard returned from the war, they got married in April of 1946, having a big, beautiful, bang-out Jewish wedding, as Della calls it. Finding a place to live was a little bit tricky back then because people were returning from war. But Selma and Bernard did finally find an apartment in Hempstead, Long Island. And while you can take the girl out of Brooklyn, you can't take the accent out of the girl. And even though Selma moved to various places throughout her life, she never lost her Brooklyn accent. Della was born in 1947 and Marla was born in 1951. Selma left working as a buyer. She said she was glad to give up work to go be at home and raise her kids. But in truth, while Selma loved her children and was very happy to be a mother, she didn't love being a housewife. She didn't love cooking and she didn't love cleaning. And so there may have been a conflict a little bit in this shift that she was making. Bernard became a salesman in the landscaping industry. And before having Marla, the family moved once again to a Levitt house in Westbury, Long Island. Selma was a devoted mother, and she remained independent and strong, even being in this role as a stay-home mother. She always had a second car, and at the time that was actually really rare. Most families only had one car, but her husband was often traveling for work, and so she needed a car of her own. This also meant that these children had the mother who could drive the kids to school when it was raining. Stella remembers that her mother loved to drive Studebakers. One was chartreuse color and one was a salmon color. Very appropriate. And she also had a yellow and black Grand Prix. Selma continued to love and to connect with people throughout her adulthood. She got involved in Hadassah, became president. She was the secretary of Temple Beth Hadassah. She really enjoyed being involved in fundraising, and she loved performing in the musicals at the synagogue. She danced and she sang and she loved being on stage. Even after leaving the fashion industry, Selma didn't lose her passion for fashion. She created a partnership with a discount ladies clothing store called Empire, and she would curate and then MC fashion shows for the Sisterhood and for Hadassah and for other groups. When Bernard was 38, he had a heart attack, and he did survive. But following this, Selma started working in their family landscaping business. And as Della said, the two of them together landscaped Long Island, planting in the spring and fall. But if you plant in the spring and fall, what that means is that there's no money coming in the winter. And money was really hard for the family. Selma, they were often concerned about their finances. So what does a smart Jewish family do who's in the landscaping business, not bringing in money in the winter? They open a Christmas tree shop, of course, right? Selma used her artistic flair to trim wreaths. And what did they do after Christmas? What joyful Jews on Long Island do when they want a good vacation after a season of hard work. They closed up shop and went to the Catskills. In 1964, when the kids were teenagers, the family moved to St. James, Long Island to be closer to the business. Selma started taking art lessons with an impactful teacher. She would draw, and she would paint, and she would go to art galleries and art shows in the city. She loved going to the city, whether it was to do art or to see Broadway shows. Bernard died in 1974. Selma was just 53 years old, but she had learned strength and resilience as a child, and this stayed with her. Selma ran the business for 5 or 6 more years. Bella shared that she believes her mom was pretty overwhelmed and anxious about this, but she did it anyway because she was a resilient and strong woman. After about 6 months after Bernard's death, a friend was having an engagement party for her child, and Selma was there. And also, a man named Dick was there, a man that she had known when she was much younger because they had gone on some double dates before. He was now widowed too. And the two started a friendship which led to dating, and they got married in 1976. As Selma put it, they decided they needed to actually have a wedding and get married because they had to set a good example for their 4 single children. Dick had a big job in New York City. He had a variety of jobs that were quite impressive. And he had an apartment there. So he would often stay in the city and during the week for work and then come back out to the island on the weekends. Money had always been, as I shared, an issue for Selma, but Dick was really financially secure. And so those concerns dissipated. Selma enjoyed living more securely. She liked her independence. She liked getting dressed up and going out. She liked going into the city and seeing shows, and she loved traveling. Together, the two of them toured all over the world, including all over the United States. And on one of their trips, they came out here to Denver, and it was Valentine's Day. They needed to turn the air conditioning on in the car in February because it was so warm right here in Denver. And this made a huge impression on them. They thought this was just completely fabulous, and they decided in 1994 that they would move here. Selma and Dick promptly joined Rhoda, and while she initially found it hard to break in, they joined a chavra, and they were able to make very good friends. Selma liked coming to services. She enjoyed singing and the music. And as was mentioned by Rabbi Gilson, she gave one of the most successful Yom Kippur appeals in Rhoda history when she was in her 80s. And on her 100th birthday, just 2 years ago, she had an aliyah to the Torah. This was after she had fallen, which I'll speak about a little bit later. And so we actually brought the Torah to her so that she could, and it was read, so that she could have her aliyah. We brought it right to where she was sitting. And I remember after her aliyah, she gave a little impromptu speech. And it was so moving. We were all just wanting to stand up and like, yay, it's Selma. We sang some of the Mazel Tov, and it was, with full emotion from the congregation because the room was filled with so many people who loved her and who were just so thrilled to celebrate her 100th birthday. Selma adored all of her grandchildren. Julia remembers her grandmother being one of the smartest and strongest people she ever knew. She remarked that her grandmother instilled the importance of education in her grandchildren. Julia also recalled going to the farmhouse sleepovers in Grandma and Grandpa's hotel when they would visit and getting money for washing her hands. Selma's grandson Alex writes how amazed he is that his grandmother was able to raise smart, tough, independent women who were able to achieve so much more than Selma that she could have imagined as a little girl. He writes, "You too are her legacy. She was beaming with pride every time she spoke of you." He also shares, I'm going to just read from his. She also loved us as her grandchildren. Look at what all of us have accomplished. Ben, Sarah, Mark, Henry, Alex, and Julia. We all owe that to following in footsteps of a great role model in our grandma and grandpa. Abe as the head of our families, and Selma. Finally, we all owe you, Della, a debt of gratitude for caretaking Selma these past 10 years, but really since she and Grandpa moved to Denver. You were always hosting always looking out for her. And she was so grateful to you, even when she had other ways of showing it. As she said about Marla, Hashem welcomed an angel to heaven just now. My son and future daughter will know they came from a strong line of women on both sides of the family tree. In Denver, Selma was involved and led projects for Hadassah. She joined immediately when she came here, the Denver chapter of Hadassah, which was very important to her. But then she transferred to the Leah chapter when Della became the president. Support your daughter. Della remembers one special trip with her mother to a Hadassah convention in Chicago. Della, it was your 50th birthday, and Selma rented limousines and took everyone out for dinner. Selma lived in Greenwood Village, across the street from John Elway's parents. And I have to admit, when I told the story, I paused because I did not know who John Elway was. So I have something in common with Selma, because apparently when she moved in, there's a decorator in her house, and the decorator said, "Oh, the Elways, that's their house right across the street." And Selma looked at the decorator like, "Where are the Elways?" And she said, "You have to know where the Elways are," and explained to Selma. And then Selma became friends with them, and she, really liked that she had this touch with faith. Della, you shared that while your mother could be critical, she was also, and you shared this earlier as well, your strongest champion and loved deeply and unconditionally. She was a presence, often enjoying being in the center of attention and having an impact. She was politically engaged. It was always important to her to vote, but especially in this past election, she was very eager to vote Donald Trump out of office. Alex shared that his grandmother was a fighter for all that's good in the world, for women's rights, for equality, for social justice. She was politically active and wasn't afraid to tell you exactly how she felt about whatever the topic was. Selma's resilience continued to be a central piece of her story as she aged. She lost her daughter Marla to leukemia, as has been mentioned, when she was in her 90s, when Selma was in her 90s, but Marla was just 60. And then Dick died the following year. She was a survivor. There was so much loss, yet she just kept on moving forward. Soon after Dick's death, Selma moved to Mountain View. Della, you suggested it, and your mom trusted you, which really says an awful lot. Mountain View enabled Selma to make new friends and to live more socially and to have the support she needed. It was also across the street from Della, and Selma knew that this move made a lot of sense. Selma remained thin and took almost no medication throughout her lifetime. She always, as you said, Della had her hair done and her nails done. She always, even in this last week of seeing her, she always looks so put together, wearing lovely clothing and her nails. She enjoyed coming over to your house, Della, to watch football with you, even though you aren't totally clear that she exactly was following the game. And she loved to attend family events. And just before her 100th birthday, she fell. And this meant that it made sense for her to move into an assisted living apartment. She had very caring and loving aides, some of whom are here: Patty, Jan, Linda, Mary, and Pat. And of course, you, Della. Della, you were her rock for these years. Even when I was there last week, she would ask time and time again. She couldn't see you. She would say, "Where's my daughter?" just to make sure that you were there. When we sat together on Friday and sang and talked, I could see that Selma took the most comfort in just simply holding your hand. She knew that you were her person, and she was so, so grateful for that. Even in these last weeks, Selma maintained independence for what she could, meeting herself and making every effort to be engaged in conversation, even when it was a struggle for her to hear, for her to understand, or for her to remember. She was resilient. She was alive, and she was a connector. So even in the end, when she was tired and her body was giving in, she was still present. She was still engaging with those who she loved. Selma left this world yesterday morning after 102.5 years, full years. She will be remembered with adoration. I want to invite Cantor Saul to lead us.
Is Lord Davi, Adonai Ravino Etzar, Dino Dasher Yardit Saini, Almemenu Potin Nataling, Nachi Yeshovei, Yad Kahini, the Maglate Sadik Liman Shimon. Gam ki elech begeit Selma ben lo yirara, yata imadi. Shiftecha mishantecha hema yinachavu. Daroch lefanai shulchan neged sorerai. Tishanta b'shemen roshi kosi remaya. October Chesed Yudufuni Koliam Mechayai Vishabti Beveit Adonai Leore Yami.
So we now have this custom of really, as I spoke about earlier, final gift that we give to Selma. This is an offering of love, and it's a physical offering. So the way we're going to do this is by putting earth on Selma's grave. I like to think of it as covering up a child when they go to sleep at night, right? Hold a sheet over them even when it's hot night, and want them to feel secure. And so in a little way, we're putting our own security on Selma's body as she returns to the earth. So the way we do this is in threes. We're told in Judaism that a threefold cord isn't easily broken, and we want our connection to Selma to remain a purer connection. And so we don't just do this once. So there is a custom of either taking in your hand three handfuls of earth and putting it on, or using the shovel. If you're using the shovel, there's a tradition of not shoveling in the normal way for the first shovel. The reason is because while this is a mitzvah and we know that this is a gift to Selma, this is not something that we really want to be doing, right? This is something that we are doing with real sadness in our hearts. And so we do this to symbolize that this is a ritualistic shoveling. This isn't like shoveling for something in our home. This is unique, it's sacred, and it's something we're doing with hesitation. So we flip the shovel backwards and shovel the first backwards, and then you can flip for the other. We will fill the grave today and recite Amalei Rahamim and mourners for that. So I'll invite Della if you want to come first and your family, and then just make a few lines. There are 4 different shovels. So. Want to make a line on this side?
Yeah.
Not yes.
Oh,
Well.
Yeah. Stand around the house this year. Yeah, absolutely.
yeah.
Not surprised.
Except that I think
also sing that to get us back focused, because when I was just there on Friday with Della, we sang through Kabbalah Shabbat and sang various songs that we thought that she might bring her comfort. And as many of you know, I don't have like the greatest voice, so I was trying to be sort of aware, like, am I causing her more discomfort or am I causing her comfort? But we kept voting that she kept sort of encouraging us and saying that yes, she wanted more. I wanted more singing, so we kept going. But I don't think we actually sang that one. But I bet that was one that she liked. And so we're going to recite El Malei Rachamim, and that will be followed by the mourner's Kaddish. El Malei Rachamim, a blessing, a prayer for Selma's soul, and the mourner's Kaddish, connecting us to the world that is to come, connecting us to our memories and to the space where Selma dwells.
But Abraham bedvora shelachale olama beganeden menukata anna abalada Astireya de sefer kinafecha leolami Betitzor bitzror Hakayim et nishmata Adonai Unakalata Ve'etanuha Ve'shalom Malishkava Ve'nomar Ve'nomar
Exalted, compassionate God, you're in infinite rest in your sheltered presence among the holy and the pure. To the soul of Zipporah, Bat Abraham, Deborah, Selma Friedman, who has gone to her eternal home. Merciful One, we ask that our loved one find perfect peace in your eternal embrace. May her soul be bound up in the bond of life. May she rest in peace. Let us say. Now our attention turns to our mourners. We're going to do 2 lines right in this area right here, directly out to their car. We offer them words of comfort as they pass. These are the words that we've given in our tradition to share when we don't know quite the words to say. So our tradition gives us words. So I'll I'll say them, you can repeat after me. You can just make lines facing each other.
I knew everything. And the other thing is like.
Boom, Yanahan, Assam, the Tochar, the Lisio, Jerusalem. Amakom, Yanahan, Assam, the Tochar, the Lisio, Jerusalem. Boom, Yanahan,